Welcome everyone. I'm Badr. I'm going to be your host today for this talk. We have 45 minutes together to talk about a lot of fun stuff. I'm going to be covering a lot of things around credential stuffing, account fraud, payment fraud, bots, phishing, malware, whatever you name it. So hopefully this is going to be enjoyable. I'm going to leave on purpose a lot of time for Q&A as well, for folks to come and ask your questions. But this is supposed to be a fun session, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. Before we get started, I'm Badr. I'm the product manager for two products, ReCAPTCHA Enterprise and WebRisk. I've been at Google for actually about 8.5 years at this stage. Spent a lot of my career actually fighting a lot of bad stuff that people do on the internet. And I started my career at Google protecting search users against everything that's bad links. That's how I kind of fell in love with a team called Safe Browsing that protects the world against phishing, malware, social engineering links. I joined that team to help actually fight all of this across Google surfaces, from Gmail, ads, etc. And then more recently, I joined actually the ReCAPTCHA and WebRisk teams to make sure that actually we can bring a lot of what we've done to make Google better at protecting itself against account takeovers and fraud and bots in the hands of our customers. Right? So that's a bit of my background, and so feel free to actually ask questions and stories in the Q&A at the end. Today, we're going to actually cover a few things. One is we'll kind of reestablish basis on where ReCAPTCHA Enterprise is at today, what it is. I know a lot of you think that it's either squiggly letters or challenges, but it's a lot more than that. And then we will be covering also ATO and fake accounts, everything that has to do with leaked credentials, phishing, credential theft, etc. How can ReCAPTCHA Enterprise help there? And also we'll be covering everything around payment fraud, so chargebacks, etc., and like how actually it's being used out there in the wild by some of our customers to protect their users. And then we'll do through a demo where we'll actually demonstrate how you as a developer or a business owner, you can leverage our solution to protect yourself and your users. Great, so quick level setting. ReCAPTCHA is now frictionless. It's been frictionless since 2018. Since 2007, I think a lot of people think of us as a squiggly letters, then the beloved by the internet challenge as well, that everybody probably has solved at least a few times in their lifetimes. Since actually 2018, we launched an invisible version. And I think it's the first time that we kind of announced that on stage, but more like the majority of our traffic today runs on our invisible version of ReCAPTCHA. So we made a lot of strides there to make sure that businesses and every sizes, from small mom and pop shops all the way to some of the largest companies out there, can protect themselves without really blocking users with these challenges. And what we're seeing here really is a few things. One, this was our bet to make sure that in the future, without challenge, we actually have a robust way to protect users and applications. But also, it's a real testament that this is something that developers needed out there. So really here, having the majority of our traffic, over 50%, run through that invisible version is a clear statement of, hopefully, something that you may have noticed is that you solve less and less of these challenges today. So you can thank all the developers that have adopted this. And if you haven't already, give it a try. In 2020, we've actually evolved the product to be ReCAPTCHA Enterprise. So ReCAPTCHA Enterprise is basically, think of it of the enterprise version that can scale with your business. It's part of Google Cloud Security. So it's a GCP product. You accept new terms when you sign up with ReCAPTCHA Enterprise, which are the GCP terms. We provide SLAs, SLOs, and a lot more new features that can allow you to protect yourselves against different use cases that we'll be covering and deep diving on today. Right. Another strength of this is that obviously a lot of people are actually trusting ReCAPTCHA. And there is a reason why you actually have encountered it at least once in your lifetime, is because it's on over 6 million sites today and growing. So when I started actually on this role over a couple of years ago and joined ReCAPTCHA, we were about 4 million sites, and this has been growing at quite a rapid rate just because a lot of people from every business size believes and trusts in this, and we're really committed to keeping it being a really important part of the infrastructure of the internet to actually protect against bots and all other types of fraud. But really the thing that happened about 3 years ago when we launched ReCAPTCHA Enterprise came from the fact that a lot of us actually sat down and thought, we have all of these sites that trust us. We have all of these use cases that they're actually protecting themselves against using ReCAPTCHA. But what are the use cases where we could actually make a dent and help these businesses build around? And really what came out is a few things. One is we needed to make sure that we protect account protections, everything around protections and account fraud. Think credential stuffing, two-factor authentication, password leak detection, fake accounts, phishing, etc. So everything that has to do with an account loss or a fake account created on an application, and that's used by using bots. In essence, we were a bot management solution 3 years ago. Today, we're a full fraud solution where you can rely on us for things that are beyond bots. The second use case, and all of this comes from the data and how people were using us, is payments fraud. Payments fraud has a lot of issues around chargebacks, erroneous rejections of real users trying to check out, and this relies on a lot of data and visibility, which luckily we have with our 6 million websites that we protect, but also with all the teams internally at Google that are building risk models that we've partnered with to bring that in the hands of customers. And later, actually, we'll be looking at how this is being used in the real world by some of our customers to protect themselves against everything around chargebacks and payment fraud. Scraping use case, obviously, for a lot of e-commerce sites, this is actually vital. For a lot of travel platforms, this is important because that allows some competitors to do scalping or cutting them. So we're also providing a lot of protection there. And really the philosophy behind this when we launched ReCAPTCHA Enterprise was two things around these three core use cases. One, you should be able to run us on all devices that your users use to access your application. What that means is we're able to actually be embedded in a WAF so that you can actually block the traffic at the first layer over the wire. This is great for streaming platforms that still rely on set-top boxes, etc. Two is to make sure that we provide you as good an experience for your users and protection, both on your native apps that you develop, as well as the web. The web is what we've been doing really well for 15 years. What we've brought here is actually things like native SDKs that you can embed in iOS and Android. They're dynamically updated, so you don't have to update your app every time we update ReCAPTCHA. And so really, this has been a push we've done, and we'll see later some of the launches that we've made that are actually going in that direction. Like, for example, our native integration into Cloud Armor. On the other end, we also understand that developers rely on multi-cloud, multi-platform, etc. So you can actually take ReCAPTCHA and you can deploy it wherever you are. If you're a GCP customer, obviously you have some gains from the fact that it's natively implemented via GCP. But if you're an AWS customer, if you're running your own backend, if you're running your apps anywhere, you should be able to deploy ReCAPTCHA so that you can rely on that infrastructure that you've already built, so that we don't come in your way and try to force you into some piece of infrastructure that you're not using today. So that's kind of the philosophy and core tenets around really being a developer-centric platform. And that around these three use cases and more, right? Now, some of the things we've done in the past 3 years that you may have seen is actually launching a few more products and features that will allow you to actually protect your sites against these use cases. First thing we did is actually ReCAPTCHA Enterprise, in essence, is a fairly young product, even though looking at the market and the adoption of the product, it's starting to become more and more ubiquitous and taking its space. But here in March 2020, we launched ReCAPTCHA Enterprise into GA. So GA stands for general availability, meaning that anyone can actually come and grab the product. Second thing we did was our Cloud Armor integration. That native integration actually allows you to deploy that, get the score from ReCAPTCHA Enterprise, so a risk score for this to be a human or a bot, and over the wire, following all your rules, be able to actually remove some of the kind of easy bot traffic so that they don't even hit your application, right? Other thing we did is ReCAPTCHA password leak detection. We'll cover more in details what it is, but really this allows you to detect if a user logging in onto your platform is using leaked credentials. And that database is a partnership that we've done with the password checkup team at Google. It's a similar database that's helping you protect your accounts on Chrome today. So you receive an alert telling you to change your passwords. We're using very similar database in order to power this product. The native mobile SDKs, both for Android and iOS, in November 2022, we launched that allow you to protect your native apps as well as you can protect the web, your web application. ReCAPTCHA Account Defender GA was a big paradigm shift in the way we're actually protecting accounts, as opposed to trying to answer the question, is this a bot or a human? This is actually trying to answer the question, is this the right person coming back? Is this a fake account? Should I 2FA this user? Can I let them through? Can I save SMS money by not authenticating this user, etc.? And then finally, and the one that I'm personally like very proud of and like really excited about is everything around reCAPTCHA fraud prevention that we GA'd earlier this year that actually allows businesses to protect themselves against chargeback and other types of fraud. And we're going to do a really nice deep dive into what that looks like for you as a developer, what type of scores we give you, and how that's integrated with other parts of the ecosystem that Google offers. So right now, we'll zoom on account fraud. This is actually the largest use case that our customers sign up for, because this is really our strength and what we've been doing best for the past 15 years. It's really kind of to go back and level set so to make sure everybody's on the same page. The ATO problem, unfortunately, relies on a very simple problem. It's the fact that people reuse their passwords. It sounds crazy that in 2023, we still have this problem. But literally, if you think about it, how often are you actually prompted when you install a new application with you creating a new password for a new account that you now have to manage on your application? And that problem makes it that if this data leaks somewhere, so one of the 100 applications that I use on my phone has a data leak, that makes any other application vulnerable for an account takeover for that specific account, right? Another thing is more and more services, especially since COVID, have moved online. And these accounts are becoming more and more important. Today, you can do your taxes online. You can buy food. You can get your groceries. You can monitor how your kids are doing at daycare. You can, manage your bank account, etc. Which makes actually now, today, the account of a user a really strong asset for a customer, right, or for an attacker to get their hands on it. So very important. And obviously, scaling bot attacks is cheaper than ever. Infrastructure costs are coming down. Bots as a service is a thing. You can actually ask people to run them for you. As long as you get your hands on the database of leaked credentials, they can do it on your behalf. Another thing is attackers really rely on a few things in order to be able to do these account takeovers. Number one, as we said, stolen credentials. Stolen credential pairs, meaning users and passwords. They need bots and automation. Or click farms. So click farms being humans actually doing the attack, right? That is becoming more and more prevalent in parts of the world, especially as accounts have become more and more valuable. So for example, think of a crypto exchange. If I get my hands on your crypto, there is no way to claim those back, but those accounts are very attractive to attackers, for example. And that means that actually it's cheaper to even pay a human to do this attack as opposed to a bot, given that the reward at the end is really high. Everything that they need is also similarly to you as business owners. They need the network, they need devices, they need infrastructure. And that's a very important point because we protect 6 million websites. So we've had instances where customers actually deployed reCAPTCHA and so their traffic of bots drop. Because if we fingerprint one bot, it's actually propagating to the 6 million sites we protect. So that's kind of a deterrent already, just having it there on the page. And then obviously anything around stolen or hijacked phone numbers and emails for MFA, for example, or being able to bypass two-factor authentication. In the worst cases we've seen with financial institutions, sometimes the attackers are even on the phone with the victim, unfortunately. So here, what we'll do is that we'll really walk through all these things that we've just discussed and give you really an overview of how we're thinking about the problem and why we've brought some of these solutions and features to market. The first solution that we've built, which is I think one of the most important we've built, because that's one of the easiest way for any business owner to make sure that the password hygiene of their customers is clean, is password leak detection. Password leak detection allows you in line at the moment of login, sign up, password reset, to check against our database whether the user is using leaked credentials based on our database of billions of entries that we either purchase from vendors, that we harvest ourselves, that we had collaborating with Google, and it's actually constantly updated to make sure that you can keep your users safe. This has no fancy ML and AI yet. It's literally a kind of Boolean answer on, is this person at risk of getting hijacked because they're using stolen credentials? And if yes, prompt them to change their password. It's the easiest thing you can do to protect accounts, even before you get into the fancy machine learning and AI you can do over this problem. So, and that's the great thing about this is that it's directly integrated in ReCAPTCHA Enterprise. So when you ask for an assessment from ReCAPTCHA, meaning when you ask ReCAPTCHA, hey, do you think this is a bot or a human? At the same time, you can ask ReCAPTCHA, hey, are these credentials clean based on your database? Another strength of this product is that we've taken a different approach than the competition. We're not providing you an answer on whether this password is risky because we've seen it across multiple databases. We're answering the question of, is this credential pair leaked somewhere on the web, which is very unique to the user, meaning that you can, with confidence, tell the user, you are at risk because I know that your account has been leaked somewhere. All of this is done in a privacy preserving manner. We're providing blinders in a way that we are not able to see these credentials in plain text. What we do is that we return the hash prefix matches, and then you can map that to that user, right? So this is great for everyone that's like in government, for example, or like want to protect their constituents without giving away some data. That allows you to do that in a privacy preserving manner where Google has no way to know what these credentials are. It's a one-way encryption method. Second is, of course, the credential stuffing attack starts. What you need for the credential stuffing attack is bots or humans. But in this case, what we've done is, you got your ReCAPTCHA Enterprise score between 0 and 1, 0 being a bot, 1 being a human, in increments of 0.1. So you have 11 scores that you can use in order to actually act against the bot attack, or think of a challenge you can show them, or think of an MFA you can present them. So at this stage of the attack, actually, what you're able to do with one API call, return to you under 100 milliseconds in a JSON format, meaning you're the only person that sees that as a response. The attacker has no idea about what you're getting back. You're able to answer the question, are these credentials clean? Are they actually vulnerable at being attacked? And is this a bot or human trying to perpetrate the attack? Now, in the old world of bot management, we would probably just tell you, I think this is a bot on my login page or my login action, therefore I think this is a credential stuffing attack. What we've done is that actually we went a step further and we launched Account Defender. Account Defender also lives on top of ReCAPTCHA with the same account requests, the same request assessment. You'll get an extra signal that will answer the question, is this Badr coming back to his account? Or is this someone trying to log in on his behalf, right? And what we do is that we return you a label that will say, is this suspicious login activity? Is this, for example, for an account creation, is this a suspicious account creation? But really, all of this is powered by what we call the profile matching engine. And that profile matching is looking at hundreds of signals for that user every time they log in to make sure that when one day there is a deviation in their normal behavior, we can, as a business owner or developer, alert you that something fishy is going on. Make sure you 2FA this user. And that's a paradigm shift, because in the attack where the credentials are clean and it is a human, it doesn't mean that it's Badr coming back trying to log in on his Gmail account. And that's really like the paradigm shift that we've done with Account Defender. And of course, then we offer a ReCAPTCHA MFA, which allows you to 2FA your user by sending an OTP via email. We also have on our roadmap to allow folks to bring their own SMS provider in order to trigger natively with the ReCAPTCHA score an SMS verification, and all of which is also protected by our SMS fraud solution that we recently launched in private preview. So you can save on those SMS dollars, because we know this year it's been painful for developers. Then, of course, everything you can do in order to reduce this password friction in MFA is Account Defender helps you actually with that profile match and risk engine. It allows you to actually save on SMS dollars in this case, or for example, avoid that friction of always asking a user to MFA, to pass their OTP, etc. Depending on the business, financial institutions actually appreciate that friction. They don't mind it. I think when you have more impatient users that are using your platforms, it might be actually frustrating to have to either pass a ReCAPTCHA challenge or MFA. So this is a good way for you to actually build that profile over time of the user and allow them to bypass a lot of the MFA friction. Another thing that's really important is another way to lose your credentials is phishing, right? This has been there since the internet has been around. But really what we do here is, if you've ever heard of safe browsing, which protects 5 billion devices around the world, it's been doing it for 17 years, it's embedded in most browsers, and we show a big red interstitial to users in those browsers and devices. That allows you to submit to us any phishing page that you know is targeting your brand or your business, so that we can block it in these 5 billion devices. So here, actually, at that stage of the attack, again, you're able to say, are these credentials leaked on the dark web somewhere? Is this a bot or a human? Is this actually an account takeover risk or not? Should I 2FA this person? Trigger the 2FA, submit the phishing pages to ReCAPTCHA, to WebRisk and Safe Browsing for protection, phishing protection, and make sure that you actually don't add friction for your profile matches and your real users that are coming back. If you think about 3 years ago, the only question you would have been able to answer is this a bot or a human? Which only gives you part of the story. And this is really where we're going with this. And most of this is available both on mobile, on web, and through our WAF integrations. And finally, of course, like one thing we wanted to mention is we recently released in private preview an SMS fraud solution. So toll fraud has been a sore point for developers this year. We actually pivoted part of our roadmap because of that. There hasn't been, I think, a single month where I talked to our customers where SMS fraud and toll fraud has been brought up as an issue. And we've recently released a score actually that you can use in order to reduce SMS fraud, where we will give you a likeliness for an SMS to be SMS fraud, so you can block it before you send it to the user. Right now, the model is that when that SMS is gone for the verification, you have to pay for it. What ReCAPTCHA can do here, similarly to payment fraud, is that you can block it up front. So you can save on those SMS dollars. And we know that in some regions of the world, these SMS prices have skyrocketed to 90 cents an SMS for verification, which can be very expensive. Second use case is really everything around bulk and fake account creation. Similarly here, ReCAPTCHA Enterprise allows you to say, is this a bot or a human trying to create an account? Very easy way for you to filter out bulk fake account creation. Now, assuming these are humans, what Account Defender does is that on top of this, it gives you a signal that will tell you suspicious account creation. That is trained based on the millions and billions of interactions we see coming through our platform. And we've built models that allow us to recognize when a fake account creation is happening because of, for example, a bot or a human or a click farm, etc. What's great about this is that this is an API response again, so the attacker doesn't know that you're onto them at that stage. Meaning that you can earmark that account and maybe limit some functionalities on your website until you verify that they're a genuine user. Fake accounts are a big issue, especially for companies that are growing at a fast pace. When you need to report to your investors your actual growth numbers, that's an issue if these are actually biased by bots. So really what we're doing here is trying to give you all these tools to be able to clean up those bots that created the accounts on your platform. But the most important piece here is the related accounts API. Once you've identified that bad seed, usually if you don't have a large company, you don't necessarily have a fraud or trust and safety team that can go and investigate each and every account and go and take it down. What the related accounts API allows you to do is actually to speed up that process. So it's almost if you had a fraud team that went and investigated for that specific account, all the other accounts that belong to the same attacker. Why this is important is because we're doing a lot of clustering and ML and AI in the background to do this clustering, right? So it's an unsupervised learning model that based on all the signals that we collect, based on network, devices, and behavior on the page, we're able to tell you like, hey, like this account that you just gave me, there's about 150 other accounts that pertain to the same attacker. Therefore, if you want to take it down, you can take it down. If you want to disable them, etc., you can with the related accounts API. So a very powerful tool to save you time and money on the investigation and enforcement. And here again, with SMS fraud, that's a great way for you to block these accounts so that you have less of these fake accounts that create that SMS fraud problem for you. All right, zoom on payment fraud. And really, this year for us, it's been really a turning point when we launched this in May of 2023. We've launched this new product called Fraud Prevention. And what fraud prevention does is really protect that payment page. So for the past 10, 15 minutes, we went on to the case of what we're doing to help you create and protect that account. That's your first step into making sure that fraud is not as rampant on your website. The reason for that is over 75, 80% of fraud starts either from an ATO or a fake account. And the rest is probably, you can attribute it to friendly fraud, etc. What we've done here is how can we actually provide a solution that combines the power of ReCAPTCHA, its visibility over 6 million sites, and the signals that we collect there, with other parts of Google so that we can actually provide a full fraud solution for your payments in order to actually solve a few things. One is everything around chargebacks, which can cost a lot of money to businesses. And then on the other end, how can we help you improve your erroneous rejection rate? Meaning, how do we avoid that you have to actually reject a user when you've spent all these marketing dollars, and at the last mile, when they're on your payment page, you reject them because you have a solution that maybe is over-conservative on that fraud problem. So really, that's what we've done, and then everything's powered by the same people that build ReCAPTCHA, the account protection suite that we just built, and really is like protecting over 6 million sites and 1 trillion transactions. And here what we've done is a lot of things have come together over the years. Over the past 3 years, what we've done is not just build this product, but build these partnerships within Google so that we can leverage each other's fraud intelligence to put it in the hands of our customers to be able to protect themselves as well as we protect ourselves. That all starts with ReCAPTCHA, because ReCAPTCHA is already present on your page. It's already protecting your page. But on top of that, we've partnered with teams like Google Payments team that helps us build those risk models. We're partnering with Safe Browsing to help you protect yourselves against phishing, malware, social engineering that can lead to credential theft, for example. And of course, above all of this, once actually this is all deployed on your page, it allows us to build those tailored models and custom models on your page and for your business based on the annotations we receive from you, the data we see on your end, and so that we can have not just a one out-of-the-box model that works for everyone, but actually custom models that work for you. And really here what we've done is, if you think about the way it normally works, either on one hand, one of your vendor will have a large visibility on everything instrument, right? So they will be able to tell you, based on my intelligence and my network of users, I know that this credit card is bad. I know that this debit card is bad. Unfortunately, this is just part of the story. The real story here is who that person is. Is this an account takeover? Is this a hijack? Is it a fake account? What behavior have I seen from this user in the past on my website? And what is the reputation of this user over the 6 million sites when it interacts with them? And really, when you think about it, ReCAPTCHA brings that perspective. Google Pay and those teams help us actually bring that on our end. And when we build those risk models together, it gives you a powerful signal to use in order to reject or accept a transaction on your site, or accept or reject a certain user on your site. And here there's a lot more data that we've built in terms of like inputs. We have merchants data, payment processors, blogs and websites, marketplaces. All of that feeds into our models so that we can build more and better models across those 6 million sites. And so now actually the way we've structured this, again, if you think about the way we were thinking about approaching the release of ReCAPTCHA Enterprise, it's a developer-centric platform, meaning that we want to put in your hands the tools that you need, the scores that you need, and maybe blend them with your own fraud engine, other solutions that you're using in vendors. So what we do is that we return you a few scores. Number one, transaction risk, the probability of the transaction to be fraudulent. This is what you want to use in order to actually add on top of your own intelligence whether you should reject this transaction or not. But we're not stopping there. What we want is to make sure that what are some of the other signals we provide or we had in order to make that decision. The first one is, what's the likeliness of this instrument to be stolen? That's all the intelligence we have built and gathered from working with other risk teams that have helped us build those models. So here you'll be able to say, well, you know what? There is a 100% chance that this is a bad instrument. I should probably reject this transaction. Two is, what's the likeliness of this card testing, meaning are these bots or humans trying to wash a certain number of credit cards that they bought on the dark web, for example, to see if they are valid on this website. So we're giving you a score for that. And one of the most important thing is the behavioral trust verdict. What that allows you to do is to make sure that you can retain all of these users that you've spent marketing dollars bringing to your platform, coming at the checkout page, and be able to actually reduce that erroneous rejection rate. And that's actually based on a lot of data that we see for that user across those websites. Have they actually checked out? Have they been actually a fraudulent user in another platform, et cetera, et cetera. And this is great because this is actual dollars that you've saved, and that's an actual customer acquisition cost that you can bring down, as opposed to attribute to your fraud solution being too conservative. We actually have a great use case that we've shared recently. Unfortunately, we can't have the customer on stage talk about it, but GoFundMe is actually using and powered by ReCAPTCHA fraud prevention today. And the way they're doing it is that they're checking whether a specific solution or a specific transaction on the page is fraudulent. And that unlocked millions of dollars in additional funds with secure transactions. That's frictionless end user experience, meaning that if you've donated recently in any GoFundMe campaign, for example, for the Maui fires and so on, all of that was actually in the background protected by ReCAPTCHA Enterprise fraud prevention. There is an informal machine learning models with ReCAPTCHA responses, and they mitigate attacks in real time, meaning that everything we've described happens in real time at the moment the user clicks on pay, checkout, login, register, under 100 milliseconds. And that's a very powerful tool that you can add on top of your solution. And really in their own words, in Matthew's own words, ReCAPTCHA Enterprise fraud prevention is fantastic at targeting bad payments and mitigating them in real time, while at the same time allowing payments to go through with minimum friction. In the case of GoFundMe, this means that causes actually receive the dollars that would have otherwise been in the hands of attackers and fraudsters. So that's one of our favorite customers we deployed this with, and we're happy to actually yield great results with. Great, we have about 15 minutes left. We'll do a quick demo, so I can show you what this looks like how you can consume those scores, how they look like in terms of response, and maybe look at different use cases. For example, if a user has logged in, or if a user is trying to check out, so that you can actually see what that would look like for you as a business. I'm just gonna log in here. Hope I don't type my password in front of everyone in plain text. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So going back to the presentation, the early presentation, we mentioned really today ReCAPTCHA is invisible. So for you in the room who have never used ReCAPTCHA invisible, the way it works is that you get a score back. So when a user tries to log in, and they click on sign in, you'll be able to actually get a response that will tell you whether this user, when trying to log in, are they bot or human? Oh, sorry, I think we have. Of course, the demo gods are not happy because the internet is not working. Just give me a second. All right, just gonna reload this real quick. It's always when you need the demo that it doesn't work.
Makes it seem more real.
Exactly. Yeah, at least you know now that it's not staged. Great. I think we're back on. All right. So the enterprise page, there you go. So let's assume that a user tries to log in. Here, and when they click login, what you get here is, with a simple implementation of ReCAPTCHA, obviously you send us your token that allows us to just identify the fact that this is you. We get your site key that's attached to your token, so we can certify that this is indeed coming from your application. So when we have bad requests and broken tokens, etc., that are usually attackers trying to pretend that they're you, we can reject those assessments. And you have what we call expected actions. This is a very important piece of the puzzle, because when you specify that, for example, this is a login page, a sign-up page, that allows the action-specific models to trigger, meaning that ReCAPTCHA, when they see that it's a login page and you actually specify it, will be able to make sure that you receive the login protection models as opposed to the generic models for bot management. Now, the good thing also is that you get a risk score. So here what happened is, if this was a real user trying to log in on your page, you'll get this score and you'd be able to say, you know what, this is actually a genuine user, this is not a bot, I'm gonna let them through. Now we can look at a different use case with Account Defender for that same user trying to log in. So as we said earlier, Account Defender was really a paradigm shift in the way we're approaching things, because it allows us to really track over time how the user is behaving, how are they behaving on your login page, and whether or not this user should be let in into your application. And so here in this example, what you provide us on top of in your request is what we call a hashed account ID. So the concept of hashed account ID is really a hashed version of the constant that you use to track the user on your application. We do this just because we actually don't need to know that it's a Gmail account, a Yahoo account. All we want to know is that this is the same user coming back, so we ask for that constant, so that we can track over time how do they behave, what network are they using, what device are they using in order to log in into your page, so we can compute that risk score over time. We're also going to introduce a way for you to send us plain text email addresses, for example, or usernames if you want. But this, FYI, this is a way for you to do it in a privacy-preserving manner. And then again, the same request goes out, and here you get what we were discussing earlier. You get your risk analysis, where you get a score between 0 and 1. But here now you have an account defender assessment that will tell you this is a profile match, so this is indeed Badr coming back, and that you could actually, if you want, skip 2FA, because we have high enough confidence that this is good. This is very powerful because here, if it was an attack perpetrated by a human or click farm, here ReCAPTCHA tells you as well that this is actually Badr coming back, so you should be pretty fine. But let's look at an example where there's unusual activity. In this case, one of the developers says that I'm in the South Pole. And so again, you pass us that hashed account ID. So let's assume that this is Badr trying to log in later on. What you get is, well, this is indeed a human, as expected. However, this is suspicious login activity going on, meaning that account defenders models have detected that there is a deviation in the way they log in. Therefore, you should actually request a two-factor authentication for this user because they're at risk of account hijacking. The awesome thing about this is, as you saw, this is all live, so it's under 50 milliseconds. It's an API response that you can ingest. The attacker has no clue about what you know, so you can actually gamify this as much as you want. You could tell them, look, this user doesn't exist in my database. You could give them a 400 error. You can give them, whatever error you want. You can redirect them to a fake shop. You can do honeypots. Really here, it's up to you on how you want to build your response to the attacker. So really, Account Defender is a powerful tool that you can add to your toolkit so that now you're not just focusing on the bot, which is a vector to an attack, but on the actual nature of the attack and the question that everybody's trying to answer, which is this account at risk of being hijacked? For account creation, it's very similar. So if I'm a fraudster 123, here in this case, they don't have yet a hashed account ID because they haven't created the account. But what we recommend our customers to do is to actually generate one on the fly, keep it so that they can earmark the account for later. And that's important for the next point that I'm going to show you. So again, here you get a 0.8, so high likeliness for it to be a human. However, this human is trying to probably create a fake account because of the behavior we've seen and the behavioral signals we collect. So in this case, you have a few choices. If you're really convinced that this is a fake account, you could block it. If you have a doubt and you don't want to lose those marketing dollars you spent on this person, you can actually block advanced functionalities on your platform. Say, for example, your streaming platform, you don't want to let them, do live streaming, for example, until they send you an ID, etc. You can use this data in order to, enforce that step-up auth. And the reason why actually that hashed account ID becomes so important is because you can then use the investigation API. And that's the related accounts API I was talking about earlier, where you can actually scale for a specific user, like say a bad user, for example. If you want to check their ID, what we're going to do is actually we're going to return you a cluster token. And that cluster token will allow you to actually go into this group. And for that ID that we saw, it will allow you to actually see all of the other accounts that are related to it that we think are the same owner. So for example, in this case, I've had the customers we were talking to yesterday who had a cluster of 12,000 accounts. I don't know about you, but I don't own 12,000 accounts on any platform. And in some cases, you may have legitimate cases. For example, at home, you may have a case where I may have 5 accounts in my same house that are using Spotify or Netflix. But in this case, if I have 150 accounts, something is sketchy. So a lot of this is actually available to you so that you can pass it on to your manual reviewers to approve transactions. You can pass it on to your data science team so that they can investigate, etc. So a really powerful tool. Last one that I wanted to demonstrate to you all before we go to the Q&A is fraud protection. Fraud protection in this case is really cool because the basic really implementation of it is when the user clicks on checkout, you'll be able to pass us a little bit more information. In this case, it's, what payment method are they using, the card bin, which is the first 6, the last 4, the value, and the USD. For example, the currency is USD. That allows us to build those models to understand Do attackers on this website just check out $10 items because it's easier to bypass, and maybe they've checked out 1,000 of them? Or maybe in this case, you know, it's a $3,000 item, so it's high value, so maybe we want to make sure that we check that. What you get then is this a bot or a human? I'm still a human, so it's good to hear. And in this case, what you get is these scores that we saw earlier. So here the scores are between 0 and 1 again, 1 being risky, 0 being low risk. And in this case, you know, there's a low risk of the instrument being stolen, the transaction risk is very low, your risk score for card testing is at 0, and actually, because we know that this person with this profile in other parts of our network has not had a bad behavior, we give you a high confidence score that this person is trustworthy, so you can actually approve their transaction instead of maybe rejecting it. So this is very cool. But let's look at actually the advanced implementation of this for a bad user. So in this case, we have an advanced version where you can give us a lot more information, right? So what you do here in your request is pass us things like, again, everything around the instrument being used, the address being used, the user, right? So for example, like, have we verified this email in the past or not? The phone number, the merchant data, the items they're trying to take out, right? So for example, in this case, a demo item, but this could be a PlayStation 5, sneakers, you name it. Or for example, you know, a donation, and then some information around the gateway. And what you get by giving us that additional data is actually more robust scores. In this case, what we see is that the stolen instrument verdict is really high, 70% chance that this is a stolen instrument being used to check out. Transaction risk is actually 100%. The card testing risk is at 100%, so there is a high likeliness that a human is trying cards on your page in order to see if they can check out with that card, and we really don't trust this user. There's a 10% trust score. Therefore, you should be fairly comfortable declining this transaction. So a really powerful tool, which again, in under 50 milliseconds, pre-auth, which is very important. I think that's a key aspect, is this doesn't go to your payment processor, which means if this would have resulted in chargebacks, you don't have to pay that dispute fee, which is $20 on average. You don't have to wait those 3 months lead time for them to come back. And you don't have to pay that transaction fee that you pay to a payment processor, which leads to even more losses. And if you are a retailer, you're not actually losing the goods that you've shipped to this attacker. So a really powerful tool, again, pre-auth, under 50 milliseconds, and you get those responses so that you can use them with the rest of your workflows. We've seen customers use this, for example, with things like manual reviewers. All right, this is the end of the demo, and I believe the end of the presentation.